Conservatives are promising a new tax cut for pensioners, which will increase their personal allowance so that they will never have to pay income tax. Well, the Work and Pension Secretary, Mel Stride, joins us now. Good morning, Mr. Stride. Just before we talk about that, can we just talk about the wobbly wheels on the Tory campaign wagon this morning? I'll just quickly go through them. You've got the Northern Ireland Minister, Steve Baker, on his jollies in Greece, basically flipping the bird to the Prime Minister and saying, I'm going on my holiday, I don't care about your campaign, I'll campaign from the beach, he sort of said. He's also criticised the National Service proposals. He says they're ill thought out and they've been dropped on MPs on the doorstep and they don't know how to sell them because no one's explained it to them. You've got a leaked internal memo from Tory head office telling Conservative MPs to get their fingers out and do some more proper campaigning and get onto the doorstep and stop going on their holidays. I mean, it's all... And you've got a Conservative MP telling everybody to vote Reform. I mean, that's not great on day 5 of the campaign, is it?
Well, let's start with the last one first and then deal with some of the others, shall we? OK, so on Reform, no, it's very simple. Under our electoral system, there is almost zero chance that there will be a Reform MP after the next general election. But voting for Reform, of course, will damage our prospects. So a vote for Reform is basically a vote for handing the keys to Keir Starmer, the keys to number 10. So I think that's what people need to bear in mind on that particular issue. Look, on the rest of it, what we are doing as a party is we have, as a government, brought us through really challenging times with COVID and the high inflation and so on, protected the economy, protected people through this cost of living challenges that we've had. And we have an opportunity now to build on that with our clear plan into the future. And that's why we have hundreds of Conservative candidates up and down the country, knocking on doors, fighting for every single vote, because it really matters.
Yeah, and then flummoxed by the question, how would you actually make national service work? Because I promise you, we tried really hard here yesterday with one of your cabinet colleagues. We could not get an answer on how it would be funded and, in particular, how it would be enforced. 24 hours later, do you have an answer for us? How would you enforce national service?
OK, well, firstly, let me make it very clear. There's been speculation about criminal sanctions being applied to people who don't engage with national service. That would not be the case. So we're not going to be looking at fines or people being arrested or anything of that nature. We will be setting up a Royal Commission which will look at the issue of the kind of incentives and sanctions that may apply. But, well, we've been very clear that there will be a commission that will look at the intricacies of those particular issues, because we recognise that we need to get it right.
You have no idea,
Richard, can I make an important point here, which is that this is not something that isn't being tried elsewhere and very successfully. So if you take Sweden, where they have national service as well, those that go through that national service, 80% of them at the end of it actually say they would actively recommend national service to a friend. So there's no reason why this bold new approach for 18-year-olds, which, look, at the end of the day is going to give young people that sense of purpose, the skills, the connection with their community, the leadership skills.
But we've been through
really
this, haven't we? And you know, we wanted to get to the details of sort of the enforcement and how that will work, but you haven't got an answer at the moment. That's obviously clear. You were talking about candidates knocking on doors, going from door to door. I mean, you're struggling. You've got a bit of a shortfall at the moment, haven't you? Got you know, however many days to go to fill 160 vacancies. There's a fear that you're not going to have enough candidates to be able to fill all those roles, and you know, reports that even one Lib Dem candidate was phoned to ask if they were going to be able to stand.
Right, well, there's no question, Charlotte, of us not having a full slate of candidates. We have until the 7th of June for nomination of those candidates that are running.
Doesn't give much time for background checks, though, does it?
Hold on a second. Like other parties, we are putting our candidates through selection processes and so on, and we will have a candidate, as we always do in every single constituency up and down the country. There's no question about it.
Would you accept that you've had a shaky start to the campaign?
No, I think what we are... It's a long campaign. We've got another 40 days to go. I think we are very clearly setting out the plan that we have to grow our economy, to get taxes down, to improve people's living standards, to provide security, both financial and also security in a rather insecure world at the moment. And you contrast that with Labour, who have no plan, can't tell us exactly what it is that they would do going forward, which is why the Prime Minister has said to Keir Starmer, come on, let's have weekly debates where we can actually set out what it is that we're standing for, and people can learn something at least about what Labour stands for. But of course, that's not something that Keir Starmer wants to do.
Nigel Farage is keen on a debate with the Prime Minister. He wants to talk about immigration, he wants to talk about tackling the small boat crisis. Is that something that you think should happen?
Well, that's not something for me to decide on. But on immigration and migration, we have had considerable success in bringing, for example, the level of legal migration down. We've brought in all sorts of changes to the visa regime to make sure that those numbers are coming down. In fact, when you look at the forecasts over the next few years, we're looking at 300,000 or thereabouts fewer migrants coming into the country. On illegal migration, of course, what we are doing is we've got our Rwanda legislation through, and where we've had arrangements with other countries like Albania on a returns policy, we have seen over 90% reductions in the level of illegal immigration, and that's partly why we saw a 1/3 reduction last year in the level of illegal migration. Labour's policy, of course, is just basically open doors, and you're going to see a huge surge in migration under Labour's plans, as far as we understand them at the moment.
OK, well, let's finish this with you're chasing the grey vote, basically. I mean, obviously, pensioners deeply disappointed with the cut in national insurance a few months ago, which obviously didn't benefit them by a halfpenny. Now you're saying they will never have to pay tax on state pension. Is that an absolutely guaranteed promise? Yes,
because what we're saying is that whereas we've applied the triple lock through time to increase the state pension, and it's gone up quite dramatically over the years, a £3,700 increase since 2010. What we're doing now is going one step further and actually applying that triple lock to the personal allowance. That's the amount you can earn without paying any income tax at all. And by doing that, we will actually be cutting the taxes of millions of pensioners going forward, unlike Labour, who have describe what we're doing as desperate, which I find absolutely extraordinary, because under them you would actually see taxes going up. Labour will drag millions of pensioners into paying
it's obviously
income tax.
Good news for pensioners, what you're planning here. But, you know, there will be working people who have seen their tax thresholds frozen, who would be wanting their tax thresholds to go up as well so that they can financially benefit as well. There'll be young families who are calling for measures to help them. It's a really difficult time for a lot of families out there in the country at the moment with the cost of living crisis. Do you have measures that you're going to be bringing in that will help support them?
So we absolutely, Charlotte, recognise that, which is precisely why the Chancellor has announced this 1/3 reduction in the level of employee national insurance. Now, that's already feeding through to people's pay packets. For an average earner in this country, that's a tax cut of £900, and it's a tax cut for 29 million people working in this country.
Yeah, but for every £1 given back by cutting national insurance, the government takes £1.30 back by not raising thresholds, though.
Well, actually, an average earner, which is about £34,500 or thereabouts, if you take into account the interaction of that tax cut that I've just mentioned with frozen tax thresholds, they're actually paying the lowest marginal rate of tax since about 1975.
All right, Mr. Stride, we're going to have to let you go.
Yeah.
We're going to have to let you go there. I'm afraid we're over time. But
Thank you
for ferrying those questions.